Every publicly traded company in the US has to publish who is on its board of directors. This is public data, but so what? Well, it turns out that some of these directors sit on more than one board, which creates interesting connections between seemingly unrelated companies, and sometimes even competitors. Josh Ahn has created a project called The Rule, which turns this boring list of companies and names into a network that is fascinating and fun to explore. It shows just how connected large corporations are and raises questions about who is really in charge. Let's take a look. The Rule connects companies through the board members they share. It hops from company to board member to company to board member and so on. Every publicly traded company in the US has a board of directors. The board oversees what a company is doing, can hire and fire the CEO, and so on. Who is on that board is not a secret. Here, for example, is Apple's leadership page with the board of directors on the bottom. This is public information, but it's dispersed over websites and forums, making it virtually impossible to do analysis on. What Josh Ahn has done with The Rule is to take that information and put it into one place to draw connections between companies. Now we can see that some of Apple's directors are also on the boards of IBM, JP Morgan Chase, Chevron, Bank of America, Target, and Nike. Exploring this dataset is simply a matter of picking a starting point, which is either a company or a person, and then clicking your way through the connections. Directors who are on multiple boards are shown as larger, and the little circles they stand on are wider too. The names don't mean much to me for the most part, so I can click a company again to remove the ones that are only on that one board. This lets me explore the connections between corporations without cluttering up the view as much. This version of The Rule is written using a 3D framework, which also gives us a neat pseudo 3D rotation around the selected company. There are also little information buttons that bring up a side panel with information about people and companies with links to more. The Rule is based on Wikidata, which is a structured database built on top of information found on Wikipedia. At this point, the current dataset only covers the 100 largest companies in the US, and of course only publicly traded ones. That means companies whose stock you can buy. This includes most of the largest companies in the US, but by no means all. Cargill, State Farm, and Nationwide, for example, easily rank in the top 100 by revenue, but are privately held and therefore not included in this list. This isn't just a data visualization Ahn created for fun. He wants to make a point. His intent is to show that there is a ruling class that is largely invisible, but that runs large corporations and also often moves in and out of government. He has a very, very, very extensive write-up of this on his So What page. I will just touch on 3 parts of it briefly here. One is the connections between companies that are competitors. His example are Walmart and Amazon, who are connected through a third company, Pepsi. 2 directors who sit on Pepsi's board also sit on the boards of these 2 competing companies. That's certainly interesting. Another point Ahn talks about in a few places is the way people can move between government and corporate boards and exert influence in both places. This isn't a partisan issue either. Both major parties in the US have these kinds of connections. I also appreciate the little interactive widgets on this So What page, like this one showing the distribution of wealth in the US between the top 1%, the 90 to 99%, 50 to 90%, and then the bottom 50%. He has data back to 1989, and it's quite astonishing to see just how much the amount of inequality has changed over this relatively short time period. There's also a clever even distribution button that shows just how far off we are from that. There's more on that page, a lot more. It's worth checking out. The Rule is an amazing project that has been around for a long time. It was first published in 2001, done in Flash back then. That means it wasn't accessible for the last several years since Flash had been deprecated and all support ended in 2020. When I was still teaching data visualization, I used to show my students The Rule as an example of how to make surprising connections in data, and also as one of the few successful examples of node link diagrams. day rule has been around for over 20 years. On the web, that's an eternity. I'm glad that it's back.